It was supposed to be just another late-night haul through the back roads of Montana. Cool way, the hum of tires on pavement, and the soft flicker of fluorescent light from the cab's dashboard. But for Cassie Blake, the only female trucker parked at Lot 47 near the Lone Pine Freight Terminal, that night would become anything but routine. In fact, it would end with one phone call, one that would bring down a man who had ruled with intimidation, lies, and something far darker. Cassie had always been known for keeping her head down. She was good at her job, never late, never sloppy, and never one to stir trouble. But something in the air that night, maybe it was the eerie quiet, or the way the terminal lights buzzed too loudly, told her something wasn't right. It began with a simple request. She had just pulled into the freight lot to log her delivery when she noticed a young man standing alone under the towering sodium lights. His eyes darted nervously, and he held a clipboard that looked too pristine for someone working the yard. Cassie wasn't one to meddle, but something about him felt off. When he approached her, he didn't ask for help with paperwork or for directions. "They are watching me," he whispered, barely audible over the idling engine. "Don't go inside the office. Whatever you do, stay out." Cassie blinked. "Excuse me." But before she could say anything else, the young man took off across the lot, disappearing between rows of stacked shipping containers. Seconds later, a pair of headlights flared to life and followed him into the dark. Cassie didn't know what to think. She turned the engine off and sat there in silence for a moment, processing what had just happened. Her gut clenched. There had been rumors about Lone Pine Terminal, whispers of drivers disappearing, truckloads going unaccounted for, and a terminal manager who operated more like a mob boss than a logistics overseer. His name was Mason Briggs, a man whose reputation for control was only rivaled by the fear he inspired. Some said he had connections with criminal networks. Others said it was just good old-fashioned corruption. Either way, nobody questioned him. Not if they wanted to keep their contracts or their kneecaps. Cassie had seen Mason once. A towering man with deep-set eyes and a voice like gravel. The kind of guy who didn't ask questions. He issued warnings. She had no intention of getting involved. But the young man's words gnawed at her. She decided to walk into the terminal office anyway, against every instinct in her body. The office was far too quiet. No receptionist. No background chatter. Just the buzz of fluorescent lights and the faint hum of electronics. The computer on the desk was still on, logged in, and a terminal manifest blinked on the screen. Cassie stepped behind the counter and scrolled. Most of it looked routine. Scheduled loads, driver codes, timestamps. Until she found the manifest for her own truck. Her shipment was listed as diversion cargo, internal use. A red flag tag hovered next to it, marked "Do not process without Briggs' approval." What the hell was diversion cargo? That wasn't a term she'd ever seen on a manifest. And she'd been hauling refrigerated produce, not exactly black market goods. She clicked the entry. The details were chilling. Her truck had been flagged to route through a hidden off-site depot, nowhere near its final destination. Coordinates were listed, along with a note. Unload for secondary transport. Confirm no driver present. That last part made her blood run cold. They hadn't just diverted her cargo. They hadn't expected her to survive the night. Cassie backed away from the desk just as the front door creaked open behind her. She didn't turn. She didn't breathe. She just listened. Heavy boots. One set. Slow. Deliberate. "Blake," came a voice she recognized all too well. "Didn't expect to see you inside. Most drivers know better." She turned. Mason Briggs filled the doorway like a shadow that swallowed light. "I was just logging my delivery," she said, trying to keep her voice level. He smiled, and it wasn't the kind of smile meant to put someone at ease. "You looked at the system." Cassie said nothing. "I don't like nosy people," he continued. "You're good at your job, Blake. Hate to see you screw that up." She took a step back. "You're diverting shipments," she said flatly. "And you're planning to do it without the driver knowing. That's not a mistake. That's sabotage." "Careful," he said. "That's a big word for someone with no proof." But she had proof. She reached into her jacket, pulled out her phone, and showed him the screen. She had taken pictures. Every screen. Every note. "I already sent these to a backup server," she said. "And I have a call scheduled to go out in 10 minutes if I don't cancel it." Mason's face didn't change, but something in his eyes flickered. Something darker. "You've made a mistake, Blake," he said. Suddenly, the overhead lights went out. The office plunged into darkness, lit only by the glow of her phone screen. She heard footsteps again, more of them this time, closing in from the back hallway. Cassie bolted. She didn't go for the front door. That would be too obvious. Instead, she ducked into the file room, slammed the door shut, and wedged a chair under the handle. Her breath came in ragged gasps. She scrolled her phone and hit the emergency contact she had saved under K. "Kyle? It's Cassie. I need your help. Now." Kyle was her brother, a former detective turned private investigator. He owed her more than a few favors. "I'm at Lone Pine. I found something big. They are diverting cargo, might be running a whole trafficking ring undercover. I'm trapped in the office. Mason Briggs is after me." "Say no more," Kyle replied. "Call the feds. Now." Cassie didn't hesitate. She dialed. Then everything went silent. The door behind her shuddered as someone slammed into it. "Cassie," Mason called through the crack. "It doesn't have to end like this. You don't have to be a martyr." She didn't answer. She just hit send. The call connected. "FBI hotline," said a voice. "State your emergency." Cassie spoke fast, her voice a whisper. "Name's Cassie Blake. I'm a commercial truck driver. I have evidence of illegal cargo diversion and possible trafficking out of Lone Pine Terminal in Montana. I've emailed photos and coordinates to your intel desk. Mason Briggs is the terminal manager. He's trying to silence me." There was a pause. "Stay on the line," the agent said. "Help is being dispatched. Stay hidden. Do not engage." But it was already too late. The door behind her exploded inward. She dropped the phone, barely missing the splinters that flew past her face. Two of Mason's goons rushed in, grabbing her by the arms. Mason stepped in after them, slow, deliberate. "You had to make it hard," he said. "Could have just gone home." Cassie struggled. "They're on their way." "You're done." He smirked. "You really think anyone's going to show up in time?" But then, sirens. Faint at first, then louder. Mason's smirk vanished. Cassie laughed through the pain. "I made the call, Mason. Your empire's burning." He turned, barking orders. "Get her out of here." But the flashing lights were already painting the walls red and blue. The FBI swept in within minutes. Guns drawn. Voices shouting. Mason tried to run. He didn't make it far. They found the diverted cargo, the false manifest, and even more, hidden documents, surveillance footage, and records of altered shipping routes dating back years. Cassie was taken to safety. That one call, just one, shut down an operation that had haunted dozens of drivers and stolen countless lives. And Mason Briggs? He never walked free again. But even after the dust settled, Cassie never forgot the chill of that night, or the way silence sometimes screamed louder than words. She went back on the road, still driving, still quiet. But now, every time her wheels hit the pavement, she knew she'd done something most wouldn't dare. She made the call that brought a monster down. And somewhere, out there on another dark road, she listens for the silence. Because sometimes, that's where the next story begins. Cassie didn't sleep the night after Mason Briggs was arrested. She sat in a cheap motel room with a view of a gas station and a flickering neon sign, replaying every moment in her head. The way the terminal went dark. The crash of the file room door. The weight of hands grabbing her. Even though Mason had been taken into custody and Lone Pine Terminal was now a crime scene, she couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over. And she was right. 2 days later, Kyle met her in person. He looked worn, his detective instinct sharper than ever, but he brought with him something that would change everything. "There's a problem," he said, setting down his laptop and pulling up the images she'd sent during the call. "The FBI's working on it. Yeah, they're digging. But the data you uncovered, it's just a tip." Cassie frowned. "You said it was enough to take Mason down." "It was," Kyle confirmed. "But this goes way higher. Mason was just a cog in the wheel. A terminal manager pulling strings for someone else. Someone with a kind of reach that doesn't end with one arrest." He slid a USB stick across the table. "Where'd you get this?" she asked. Kyle hesitated. "Let's just say there are other people who've been watching this operation for a long time. You triggered something. You shook the nest." Cassie plugged in the drive. Files opened. Not just manifests, but encrypted communications, photos of unidentified shipping containers, satellite images of transport hubs across 4 states, and a name she'd never seen before, Project Ghostline. "What the hell is Ghostline?" she asked. Kyle shook his head. "No one knows. But whatever it is, it's being run by a shell corporation out of Nevada. Same one that's listed as a silent partner in Lone Pine's parent company." Cassie leaned back in her chair. So Mason was just logistics. Exactly. He made sure the trucks went where they weren't supposed to, but he didn't decide what was in them. A chill ran through her. "You think it's trafficking?" Kyle nodded grimly. "Or worse." The next morning, Cassie got a call from a blocked number. "Ms. Blake," a woman's voice said. "Calm. Cold. You made powerful enemies." Cassie didn't respond. "You should stop digging. For your safety. For your brothers." Click. Cassie stared at the phone. The screen returned to black like nothing had happened. But her heart was racing. "They know," she told Kyle. He was already packing. "We're leaving. Right now." They hit the road in Cassie's rig. She refused to abandon the only home she'd known for the last 6 years. Kyle rode shotgun, laptop open, tracking where the signals led them. The files from the USB trace certain shipments to a hub just outside Elko, Nevada, a compound listed as a secure logistic facility, but marked private on all maps. The road into Elko was long and lonely. Desert stretched for miles in all directions. The air was dry and heavy with dust, and every mile closer to the facility brought with it a strange tension, like something in the landscape didn't want to be seen. They parked the rig a mile out and continued on foot through the scrub. By nightfall, they reached a ridge overlooking the compound. What they saw didn't make sense. Rows of trucks, unmarked, were lined up like cattle. Men in uniforms moved crates with military precision. No signs, no logos, just cold efficiency. Surveillance drones hovered silently overhead. Kyle zoomed in with a camera. "See that?" he said. "Those crates are sealed in lead. Military grade. No way to scan them without opening." Cass's stomach turned. "What are they moving?" Kyle didn't answer. The silence stretched. Then he pointed. "That truck, license plate matches one from a missing person report. Driver vanished 2 months ago in Colorado." They had their proof. But getting it out wouldn't be easy. As they backed away from the ridge, a crunch behind them stopped them cold. A flashlight snapped on. 2 men in tactical gear stood behind them, weapons raised. "Hands up." They complied. Cassie could feel her heart pounding in her ears. "We're just hikers," Kyle said calmly. "Got lost." The men didn't respond. One stepped forward and reached for the camera. Cassie acted fast. She stumbled, tripping over a rock, grabbing Kyle's shoulder as she fell. The motion knocked his camera forward, right into her hand. She slipped the memory card from the side and palmed it. The guard yanked the camera up and checked the display. Empty. "Battery died," Kyle said. "We didn't get anything." The other guard eyed them for a moment too long. Then he lowered his weapon. "Get back on the road. Don't come back." They were escorted to their truck and watched until they drove off. Only when they were 20 miles away did Cassie let out the breath she'd been holding. She handed Kyle the card. "You got the shot?" He nodded. Every frame. The next 24 hours were chaos. They uploaded the images to a secure network Kyle used when he was still in the force. Deep channels that linked to whistleblower sites and federal contacts who owed him favors. But it wasn't enough. The compound in Elko? Gone within hours. Bulldozed to date. The trucks? Vanished. Not a single trace left. Someone had pulled strings. Fast. Cassie knew they were running out of time. So she made another call. This time, not to the FBI. She called a woman named Angela Rowe, a former investigative journalist turned documentarian who specialized in government cover-ups. Angela didn't ask questions. Within 2 days, a team met Cassie and Kyle in a safe house in Utah. They interviewed her. documented the files, and created an encrypted data drop that would auto-publish if not reset every 48 hours. Angela's words stuck with her. You started something. They can't erase you now. You're in the light. But being in the light didn't make Cassie feel safer. It made her feel like a target with no cover. The final blow came a week later. She returned to her truck after grabbing coffee at a roadside diner. Her dashboard was smashed in. Every camera, every GPS system, even her emergency satellite beacon, ripped out. A single note was taped to the steering wheel. You were warned. Cassie didn't cry. She didn't scream. She started the truck, drove to the nearest state trooper station, and handed them the note. I'm not running anymore, she told the officer. If they want me, they can try. By the time she walked back to her rig, she knew what she had to do. She'd been a driver, a loner, someone who let the road be her escape. But now, she was a voice. Her first video aired on Angela's network. A documentary. Her story. Mason Briggs. Lone Pine. The facility in Elko. The images went viral. Whistleblowers from other terminals came forward. Drivers. Dispatchers. Even a low-level corporate analyst who'd seen the term Project Ghostline in budget sheets but had no idea what it meant. Until now. Investigations reopened. Congressional hearings were held. And though the full truth behind Ghostline never saw daylight, Cass's one call had done more than shut down a corrupt terminal manager. It cracked the arm of a machine built on silence and shadows. Cassie Blake still drives. But now, every stop she makes, someone knows her name. And sometimes they whisper thanks. Because she picked up the phone. Because she said no. Because she didn't stay quiet. And in a world built to keep certain stories buried in the dark, that may be the loudest truth of all.